Okay, hey again. So I am at Exodus chapter 31. Started on the 1st of June, Genesis chapter 1, and now I am through Genesis and in Exodus because I'm reading 40 chapters every day. I'm going to get through this entire Bible by the end of the month. So I'm cataloging just a few observations that I make as I am going through the Bible. And these videos are going to be posted every day because you can't read through the Bible without noticing some stuff. Anyways, let's get into this. So, as I was finishing Genesis, there's a lot in Exodus that I could speak about, but I'm not going to speak about what's in Exodus until tomorrow. But what I have observed in Exodus. So in the book of Genesis, there's something very interesting. There's this doctrine called the sovereignty of God, and another doctrine called the human responsibility, the responsibility of man. And at first, when these two doctrines are taught, they seem to contradict one another. But when you look a little bit deeper, you realize that these doctrines are not contradictory, but rather they're paradoxical. In that God is sovereign and man is responsible for his actions. And that's the truth. But anyways, let's get into it. So, when you read the book of Genesis and you read about the story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into slavery, and he was in the land of Egypt, etc., etc. We know, because we've read, who sold Joseph into slavery. It was his brothers. You have in Genesis chapter 45, verse 4 to verse 9. It says these words, and then I'm going to highlight some verses. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come closer to me." And they came closer, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." Now, in that one verse, you realize something. They sold Joseph into slavery, and God sent Joseph into slavery. The sovereignty of God and the responsibility of man. Divine sovereignty and human responsibility. Verse 6. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. Verse 7. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Now, therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. Now here we have Joseph saying to his brothers, they didn't send him, but God did. Which one could say that God used the brothers of Joseph as a secondary means to send Joseph into slavery. So it could easily be said, and correctly be said, that the brothers sent Joseph into slavery and God sent Joseph into slavery. And God is sovereign and men are responsible. Continuing on, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord of all his household, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, Thus says the son of Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Do not delay. And then finally, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. It says, As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Now, a lot of times when people quote this verse in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, they say, you meant it for evil, but God turned it around for good. That is not what it says. It says, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. When you study the English language, you learn about a word called antecedent. An antecedent is something that refers to something that came before it. The direct antecedent for the word it in this sentence is the word evil. You meant evil against me, but God meant it. What is the it? The evil. God meant it for good. And we know what that good is. And it says, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. So God meant the evil, God meant it for good. And what is that good? To preserve many people alive. So God uses evil. God uses evil. And God uses people to perform that which he wants them to perform in order to bring about his intended result. And it is always for his glory. And there are a lot more that I have noticed, but if I were to put everything that I've observed and noticed when I read through 40 chapters in one day, these videos would be more than an hour long, and we don't want anyone to go through that much suffering going through this talking head experience. So I'm going to end this video here, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video. I'm going to be reading from Exodus chapter 31 to Numbers chapter 4. Well, rather, Numbers chapter 3. Numbers chapter 3. As you can see here, I have these little blue things which mark the day and the amount of chapters that I am supposed to read for that particular day. So this one is day 2, the 2nd of June. Read 80 chapters out of 1189. So tomorrow, the 3rd day, I'm supposed to read 120 chapters out of 1189. And this is just reading 40 more, and 40 more, and 40 more. And adding 40 every day, the number increases until finally it's done. So I hope you guys keep up with me on this journey, and stay tuned for my Bible observations. All right? Have a good night. Thanks again. God bless you. Have a good night.